Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage. Today we're doing a quick little tech video on a common modification when you are lowering the front of an early Ford, and that is using the lever shocks that come on these cars, all the early Fords. When I say early Fords, 48 and earlier, pretty much all of them came with some sort of lever shock on them. That if you're doing an early hot rod and you want to kind of keep that old style look, on the Schroll Coupe here, this is what the car had in the front, and then it had tube shots in the back, so we're kind of keeping that the same. So when we put this all back together, we put the reverse side spring on it, and we played with the leaves a little bit. It already had some leaves taken out of the spring, and the car sits lower than it did stock. Even though it has an undropped axle, it does sit a little bit lower than stock. So what happened is when we rolled the car outside after setting everything down and got the weight back in the car, I realized that the car front suspension was very, very stiff. So we started looking at it. We cut the leaf where it was where it was hitting on the reverse side. That didn't really solve anything. Then we realized that the shocks were actually at the top of their travel. So as you push down on the suspension, this goes down, the shock arm is supposed to go up, and because it has fluid inside of it, the resistance of that is what gives you your dampening for your shocks. So if you want to keep these early shocks in here, but you need to get extra travel, there's a bunch of ways you could do this. So I started looking around on some old photos. I also took a look at some of the older cars I have that are true old hot rods that were still together. So I looked at the DeLorean Roadster, and that actually had these original shock links like this. They have 2 bolt holes through them. These dog bones, what they did is they basically cut all the excess out and moved the ball all the way up, so there was just 1 bolt hole through there. So that's going to give me I don't know, 1 inch or 2 inches of room on there that it's going to give us. So I'm going to try that first. So I'm going to cut and section and weld these and show you guys that process. And then from there we may need to heat and bend the shock arm just to get everything to go how I want. But we're going to show you the process, and it's just another way to accomplish getting these cars to ride and travel as they should when they're lowered and modified. Alright, so these shock links, they have openings that are opposite of each other. So just make sure you're putting the 2 of them together. What I'm going to do is just actually bolt these back together with both bolts, and then I can split it in half just so that all the pieces are cut basically the same. Just a down and dirty kind of simple way to do it. So I'm going to just bolt these back together, put it in the vise here, cut out the excess junk, and then we could sand it and get it ready to weld. Unfortunately, we had just painted these, but that's how this stuff goes sometimes, so I'll have to throw another coat of paint on it after it's all set and done. so we got these all welded up and blended, and I sprayed it with some Eastwood rust encapsulator. Looking good. Whenever the welds were all blended out and everything, it really couldn't tell if you didn't know that these links have about probably 2 inches or so taken out of them. So we could fit these on to our shocks again, and now it allows me to push this shock down a little bit, and it's not all the way up in the travel. And we can take our single bolt now instead of 2 bolts, tighten it down, and should be able to go back together relatively easy like stock. So get these tightened up. We'll check the suspension travel and see where we're at, and see if we need to do any other modifications to it, or if it works out just like this, which I'm hoping it will. Alright, so I got the shock links all mounted up and everything seems to be fine. Now, one thing on the 32 Roadster and the DeLorean Roadster that I noticed they did is they actually put a little Z in the shock arm just to get this ball basically more straight up and down, but it really doesn't make any difference because it is on a ball and socket, so it can pivot and rotate. So I'm going to leave it alone for now and make sure that we get the right travel that we need out of it, and it should work just fine. So I did a little test on it and bouncing the suspension up and down. We're not getting any hard stop on the suspension. Before it was basically sitting hard on the the extend of the travel of the shock arm, and that was causing the problem. So now, like I said, we're able to bounce this up and down. It's not real bouncy like it was without the shocks. We can stop it and they're doing their job. So down the road, it's not going to be like a pogo stick. So it worked out pretty darn good. So that's just a quick little project. If you have a similar project that you're doing, the old original shocks, and you have these 32 to 34 style wishbone mounts or spring perches, you can do something like this and it should work out. And it's a cheap, quick, free modification that you can do, and is very, very traditional if you're into doing the stuff the old way like we are. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Catch you later.